Good morning, students. Today we will discuss neonatal resuscitation. First of all, let me tell you what is neonatal resuscitation. Resuscitation is reviving, and neonatal resuscitation is reviving an apparently not well baby. Now let's see what is the need for resuscitation. Of the 25 million infants born every year in India, 3 to 5% experience asphyxia at birth. So of all the total children born, there are 3% to 5% children who have asphyxia, who suffer from asphyxia. Now what is asphyxia? Asphyxia is characterized by progressive hypoxia, hypercapnia, Now asphyxia is characterized by progressive hypoxia, hypercapnia, hypoperfusion and acidosis. That is, there is hypoxia, lack of oxygen, hypercapnia, increased concentration of CO2 in blood, hypoperfusion, that is, blood supply, perfusion to vital organs is decreased, and acidosis, pH of blood is also decreased. Now, what is the ill effect of asphyxia? Asphyxia or birth asphyxia, as you may call it, it leads to multi-organ dysfunction, including HIE. Now, what is HIE? It is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and HIE has long-term neuromotor sequelae like cerebral palsy. Now, you should know what are the risk factors which include antepartum risk factors and intrapartum risk factors. With careful consideration of these 2 points, you can anticipate asphyxia in up to half of newborn who will eventually require some form of resuscitation. So, before attending a delivery, you should consider several points which I will tell you now to judge whether the baby who is going to be delivered, whether she or he will need resuscitation or not. So in 50% of cases you can anticipate it, you can predict it, and in other 50% the need for resuscitation can come as a complete surprise. So in every delivery you should be prepared for resuscitation. You should treat every delivery as an emergency. Now let's first see the antepartum risk factors. Maternal diabetes, that is, mother is suffering from diabetes mellitus. Chronic hypertension, mother has increased blood pressure. Isoimmunization, that is, blood group of mother is Rh negative and baby is Rh positive. So this can lead to Rh isoimmunization. Previous fetal or neonatal death, that is, the mother gives you history that her previous fetuses or previous neonate died. So you should be alert as to what reason was there for previous death. Bleeding in second or third trimester. If a mother has complained of bleeding, PV, bleeding per vaginum in second trimester or third trimester, you should be alert. Polyhydramnios, oligohydramnios, that is, too much amount of liquor, amniotic fluid, or very little amniotic fluid. Premature rupture of membranes. Multiple gestation, that is, more than one viable fetus in uterus. Age of mother less than 16 years or greater than 35 years. Fetal malformation, which is detected by ultrasonography. Maternal substance abuse. If the mother is using a drug, or she is a drug addict, or she is using tobacco, smoking, etc. LBW baby, low birth weight baby, if the baby has weight less than 2.5 kg or 2500 grams. This you can see by ultrasound of mother. Now let's see what are the intrapartum risk factors. Emergency LSCS. If you have been called for an emergency LSCS, you should anticipate that something is serious. Even if you don't know the exact cause, you should be prepared for resuscitation. Forceps or vacuum assisted delivery. If forceps or vacuum is being used, then there may be chances of fetal distress and decreased heart rate, for which you have to use resuscitation. Chorioamnionitis, that is inflammation of chorion and amnion. Breech presentation or any other abnormal presentation. You know, the normal presentation, it is cephalic, and anything other than cephalic presentation is abnormal presentation. Premature labor. A fetus who has not yet completed the term pregnancy, term gestation, and there is an onset of labor, it is called premature labor. PROM, premature rupture of membrane greater than 18 hours before delivery. If a lady has history of leaking PV, that is amniotic fluid coming out of her vagina, and this is for more than 18 hours before delivery, so there are much more chances of infection. So you should be ready for resuscitation. Prolonged labor, more than 24 hours. Prolonged second stage of labor, more than 2 hours. Fetal bradycardia, that is decreased fetal heart rate. Use of general anesthesia. MSAF, meconium stain amniotic fluid. Prolapsed cord, cord coming out through vagina. Abruptio placentae, that is placenta is separated from the uterine wall, which results in bleeding PV. Placenta previa, that is placenta is located in the lower segment of uterus, or it may or may not be covering or may be adjacent to the os. Now these are the neonatal resuscitation equipments. You should be familiar to them, and let's see one by one what is this. The first one is a radiant heat source. It is a radiant warmer. What for it is used? It is used for keeping the baby and warming it. When a baby is delivered, he is exposed to the environmental temperature which is lower than the in uterus temperature. So there are chances of fetal hypothermia. There is chances of the baby going in hypothermia. So you have to use radiant warmer to maintain temperature. The next instrument you see is mucus sucker. What for it is used? It is used for sucking the mucus out of baby's oral cavity and nasal cavity. The next one is nasogastric tube, or you can call it NG tube. It is mostly used for stomach wash. The fourth one, it is very important, bag and mask. It is also called AMBU bag, ambulatory mechanical breathing unit. This is used for administering PPV, positive pressure ventilation. In the second row, the first one you see is laryngoscope. This is an instrument used for viewing the larynx, for viewing the organs of the cavity, oral cavity. It is used for inserting the ET tube. It can also be used for laryngoscope guided suctioning. And you see there are two blades in a packet of laryngoscope. You get two blades, 0 number and 1 number. The 0 number blade is used for preterm and the bigger one, 1 number blade, is used for term baby. And as you can see here, it is straight blade. This is straight blade laryngoscope. In neonates we use straight blade laryngoscope. Next figure you can see is ET tube. It is called endotracheal tube. It is used for inserting in trachea. When I'll tell you the indications later. When we don't resuscitate the baby well enough by mask, we use ET. Also, in case of meconium stained amniotic fluid baby, we use ET. Now this medicine is a crucial medicine. It is called adrenaline. We'll come to this later. And this is a sodium chloride injection. It is a volume expander. Now this is an elaborate view of bag and mask. As you can see, this is the mask portion and this is oxygen reservoir. This one is oxygen tubing. It is connected to the oxygen cylinder or the central oxygen supply. This is pop-off valve. It is used to release the extra oxygen pressure, and this is valve assembly. Okay, you can read this in detail in your books. This is meconium sucker or meconium aspirator, you can call it. This is a laryngoscope. These two blades are detachable, as you can see. This is 0 number. As you can see, it is written minutely. 0 number used in preterm and 1 number used in term. This is a battery operated laryngoscope. You have two AA size batteries inserted in this portion, and you have a bulb here. Right here you have a bulb. When you fix it, it glows. The bulb glows and you can see the cavity, the larynx portion, and insert ET tube properly. So you should keep spare batteries and spare bulb also with you in case your batteries are exhausted, in case your bulb gets fused. So you should keep things in reserve also. This is ET tube, endotracheal tube. These tube come with numbers. So what numbers you should keep handy? 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, 4.0, and this is internal diameter. What this number denotes? This denotes internal diameter of the tubes in mm, in millimeter. And this one is a stylet. This you see, this is a stylet. So you can very well guess that this portion you insert in the mouth and this portion remains outside, and it is connected to the bag. You see this bag and mask. You remove this mask portion, you remove it out, and to this portion, this very portion, you connect your ET tube. You connect this portion of your ET tube. Again, it is used for giving PPV and also for clearing the trachea of meconium. So apart from epinephrine, you can also keep ringer lactate with you, naloxone with you, and you should keep sterile water, distilled water with you. Some miscellaneous things which we should keep ready is stopwatch, linen, shoulder roll, gauze, stetho, tape, scissors, syringes, three-way stopcocks and gloves. Now let's see what are the signs to evaluate. What things we should see exactly. So there are three primary signs which you should look upon. These are respiration, heart rate and color. So how can you see a respiration? Respiration is obvious as the baby is crying and through the chest movements. Heart rate you can auscultate by a stetho, and color, this is also visible by your eyes. One thing which you should note here, that while seeing the color, you have to see the color of the face or trunk, not of the extremities. If a baby has bluish hue on his palm or sole, you don't consider it abnormal, it is considered normal. In a newborn, it is called acrocyanosis and it is not of significant value. So where you will look for color? On the face and trunk portion, not on the extremities. So one important thing which I would like to tell you is Apgar score. What is Apgar score? Apgar score is a score which we give to a neonate considering 5 points like breathing, heart rate, muscle tone, reflex response and color. So if a baby has no breathing, you give 0, slow gasping you give 1 and crying you give 2. So there are 5 parameters: breathing, heart rate, muscle tone, reflex, color, and in each one of them you give either 0, 1 or 2. So the maximum score a baby can get is 2 and the minimum is 0. Similarly, heart rate per minute 0 up to 100, more than 100. Muscle tone flaccid, in between fully flexed. Reflex nil, grimace, cough, sneeze, cry. Color blue pale, peripheral cyanosis pink. So this is Apgar score criteria. One thing which you should be very clear is that what is the role of Apgar score in resuscitation. Let me tell you that while the Apgar score is not very useful for decision making at the beginning of resuscitation, so you don't decide when to resuscitate, how to resuscitate on the basis of Apgar score. But Apgar score is important to notice that change of score at sequential time points following birth can reflect how well the baby is responding to resuscitative efforts. So when you face an asphyxiated baby which should be resuscitated, you don't calculate the Apgar score at all. You just resuscitate him, and on the basis of your memory you can later write down the Apgar score. So in this picture you see that a baby, what is the muscle tone? It is almost flaccid. You see, what should be a normal tone of arms? It should be flexed, but this baby is flaccid and he is cyanosed also. So what is the color? It is cyanosed. So this baby must be having a low Apgar score. Now let's see TABC of resuscitation. T is temperature. So how do we give temperature? We provide warmth by a radiant warmer and we dry the baby and remove the wet linen. What if we don't have a radiant warmer? You can also provide warmth by a blower, or even if you don't have a blower, you can use 200-watt bulb. A is for airway. You should keep the airway patent. You should position the infant properly, and his chin should be a little bit raised so that airway becomes clear. Also, if you see any secretions coming, you should clear the oral cavity and nasal cavity by mucus sucker. At this point, I would like to tell you one thing, that mouth is suctioned first to ensure that there is nothing for the infant to aspirate if he gasps during nose suctioning. So one important point is in airway that you should aspirate mouth first. You should suction mouth first, not nose. Okay, then after you can suction nose. One should not insert catheter too deep in mouth or nose for suctioning, because stimulation of posterior pharynx can produce a vagal response causing severe bradycardia or apnea. So when you are inserting your mucus sucker or meconium aspirator tube in oral cavity or nasal cavity, you should not insert it too deep. So what is the optimum length for insertion? It can be inserted up to a maximum of 3 cm in nose and 5 cm in mouth. Okay, and what is the maximum time limit for suctioning? It is 15 seconds only. 15 seconds only. So don't suction for very long and don't suction very deep. Now B is breathing. So how can you stimulate a baby to breathe? You can give tactile stimulation to initiate respiration. You can rub gently on back and you can flick his soles. And positive pressure breathe should be given by bag and mask or by ET and bag whenever necessary. Also you can give it by PPV or CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. And C is for circulation. You should stimulate and maintain the circulation of blood with chest compression and medications as required. Now let's see the resuscitation algorithm, that is stepwise what we have to do in case we face an asphyxiated baby. First of all, when a baby is born, you should see these questions. Whether the baby is clear of meconium, that is the meconium present or not? Is the breathing good? Is the baby crying? Is there good muscle tone? Is the baby pink? Is the gestation term? So if answer to all these questions is yes, you should go for routine care. In this chart you don't see that yes portion, but I'll tell you that if the answers to all these questions is yes, you should go for routine care. Routine care is providing warmth, clear airway, dry and assess color. Now if the answer is no, then what you should do? You should provide warmth, you should position, clear airway, dry, stimulate, reposition and give oxygen. Okay, so the main step here is to stimulate and give oxygen. These are the two main steps, to stimulate and give oxygen. So how do you stimulate? You stimulate by rubbing the back and flicking the soles. This step is done for 30 seconds. You have only 30 seconds to do this. If in 30 seconds you do not get appropriate response, you have to move on to the next steps. Now after 30 seconds you have to rapidly evaluate respiration, heart rate and color. As I have already told you, these are the 3 assessment parameters. If you see that baby has started breathing and heart rate has gone above 100 and the baby is pink, so the baby is kept in observational care. And if you see that baby is not breathing, she is apneic. Apnea is absence of breathing, apnea, and the heart rate is less than 100, so you give PPV, positive pressure ventilation. And how do you give PPV? By bag and mask, or by bag and ET, or by a CPAP. Now you have 30 seconds to give PPV. After 30 seconds you should again evaluate. You should evaluate the heart rate this time. So heart rate, if it is more than 100, it is okay, but if it is less than 60, you should start chest compression along with PPV. And if it is between 60 and 100, you should continue the PPV alone. So remember, what is the indication for chest compression? It is heart rate less than 60. Now again you should give chest compression plus PPV for 30 seconds, and after 30 seconds, if the heart rate is still below 60 per second, you should administer epinephrine injection. Now ET intubation may be considered at several steps, so it is not mandatory when you should intubate, but I will give you later a guideline when you should try to intubate. So this is the algorithm of resuscitation. This is the basic algorithm which all of you should be fully aware of. Now let's see one by one the steps. Bag and mask ventilation. Positive pressure ventilation is usually given by using a self-inflating bag. The bag you see in this picture is self-inflating bag and face mask. It is called bag and mask ventilation, or BMV. BMV. We often ask this in your spottings and viva, that what is the indication of BMV. So there are 3 basic indications of BMV. If the infant is apneic or gasping, heart rate is less than 100, even if the baby is breathing, and there is persistent central cyanosis despite administration of 100% free flow oxygen. So if a baby is not breathing, apneic, or he is breathing very slow, gasping, so you should go for BMV, that is bag and mask ventilation. If the heart rate is less than 100, even if the baby is breathing, heart rate is less than 100, you should go for again BMV. And if there is persistent central cyanosis, that even if you have given free flow oxygen, even then cyanosis is not improving, that the cyanosis is persistent, then you should give BMV. Now what are the contraindications? Contraindications, there are 2 contraindications. One of them is absolute, one of them is relative. So absolute contraindication is diaphragmatic hernia. If you give BMV to a diaphragmatic hernia patient, you will worsen the condition, you will worsen the asphyxia. So never give BMV in diaphragmatic hernia. Diaphragmatic hernia you will mostly mostly be knowing prior to delivery, because you will see this in USG. So it is also very important to go through the reports and USG of mother. And another relative contraindication is non-vigorous babies born through MSAF. Now what is MSAF? Meconium stained amniotic fluid. Okay. So after carrying out thoracotracheal suctioning, BMV can be used. So this is a relative, not absolute contraindication. So what is the procedure for pregnant mask ventilation? Infant's neck should be slightly extended to ensure an open airway. One should be positioned at the head end of the baby or at the side so that you can have a clear view and unobstructed view of baby. Face mask should be of appropriate size that covers the mouth and nose but not the eyes. Okay, and you should hold the face mask firmly on the face to obtain a good seal. As you see in this picture, this face mask should cover both the nose and mouth. Okay, and it should be held firmly. If the mask is not covering nose and mouth, so you will not be able to do your procedure properly. Now one thing you should note is ventilation should be carried out at a rate of 40 to 60 per minute. So in 1 minute you should give 40 to 60 ppv. And you should follow the sequence squeeze 2 3 squeeze. So if you keep saying like this, the average rate you will achieve is 40 to 60 ppv per minute. Also, bag and mask ventilation causes abdominal distension because the air not only enters the lungs but it also escapes into the stomach by the esophagus. So you can see distended stomach, and this distended stomach presses the diaphragm and compromises the ventilation. Therefore, if the ventilation is continued for more than 2 minutes, if you are doing it for more than 2 minutes, you should patent an orogastric tube, OG tube of 6 number or 8 number so that the abdomen is decompressed. The extra air which is going into the stomach, it comes back to the environment. Now next we come to chest compressions. Now what for we do chest compression? Chest compression we do that because heart circulates blood throughout the body, delivering oxygen to vital organs. Now when an infant becomes hypoxic, the heart rate decreases or it may be absent. So there is decreased flow of blood to vital organs. Now chest compression you do helps in mechanically pumping the blood to vital organs of the body. Okay, you do chest compression to mechanically do what heart does normally. So you compresses it mechanically. Okay, so that blood goes out to circulation into the body. And there is no use of doing chest compression alone. Chest compression must be accompanied by BMV so that only oxygenated blood is being circulated during chest compressions. What is chest compression? It consists of rhythmic compression of the sternum that compresses the heart against the spine, and it increases the intrathoracic pressure and circulates the blood to vital organs of the body. You remember what is the indication? Indication is if the heart rate is less than 60, even after 30 seconds of PPV with 100% oxygen. This is the indication of chest compression. And what are the two procedures you can follow in chest compression? It is thumb technique, it is more preferable, and two finger technique. So this one is the thumb technique. and the second one is the two finger technique. In the first one, in the thumb technique, you use two thumbs to depress the sternum with hands encircling torso and fingers supporting back. You see here, thumb is compressing the sternum and the hands are encircling the torso, okay, and fingers are supporting the back. In the two finger technique, you see the tip of middle finger. Which two fingers you should use? One middle finger and one index finger. Also you can use one middle finger and one ring finger. So when you use two finger technique, you use one hand to compress the sternum, and what do you do with your other hand? Your other hand is free, so you can use the other hand to support the infant's back, okay. Also you should note that if you do chest compression, pressure should be applied on lower third of the sternum, and you should avoid applying pressure on xiphoid. So you see this picture, you should apply the pressure on lower 1/3 of the sternum and not on the xiphoid process. Now what is the rate of using CC? A ventilation breath should follow every third chest compression. So it is important to ventilate between chest compression. A ventilation breath should follow every third chest compression. That is, in 1 minute you will have to do 90 chest compression and 30 breathe. This is very important. Always remember, in 1 minute 90 chest compression and 30 breathe. And you should count out loud as you press. Mostly when we do chest compression, we need two people. One of them will do chest compression and another person will do the PPV. So you should count out loud so that both people can maintain their rhythm simultaneously. This is shown on a dummy, how you do chest compression and PPV. So you can see two people are present here. You cannot do chest compression and PPV alone. So what you have to evaluate after 30 seconds? If the heart rate is less than 60, you should continue chest compression and bag and mask and also give epinephrine. If heart rate is more than 60, you should discontinue chest compression and give only BMV. And if the heart rate is more than 100, then it means the infant is breathing spontaneously. You should stop BMV and chest compression both. Now we see the endotracheal intubation. What are the indications for endotracheal intubation? For tracheal suctioning. So when do you do tracheal suctioning? It is required in non-vigorous baby born through MSAF. That is, if the meconium is present in the amniotic fluid and the baby is non-vigorous, he is not having heart rate, he is not having proper breathing, and his movements are not present, hand movements or leg movements are not present. Or when prolonged BMV is required. When you require a prolonged BMV, you cannot keep holding the mask tightly for long, so you intubate the baby. Or when BMV is ineffective, for any reasons you are doing BMV and you are not getting appropriate results, so it is better to intubate. Or when diaphragmatic hernia is suspected. As I have already told you that diaphragmatic hernia is an absolute contraindication for BMV, for bag and mask. So it is an indication for ET. Okay. You can also use ET for administering medications. Now which number ET should you use? You should it depends on the weight of the baby. A baby having weight less than 1 kg, you should use 2.5 number ET. For 1 to 2 kg, 3.0 number ET. For 2 to 3, 3.5 number ET. For more than 3 kg, 4 number ET. Okay, so this you should remember which tube size should be used for which weight. This is the process of insertion of ET tube. The upper one is shown in a dummy, that you use a laryngoscope to visualize the cavity, the oral cavity and the larynx, and then you insert your ET tube. Again, this is a real picture. You see, laryngoscope is held in left hand. The doctor should stand to the head end of the baby on the side of head, and laryngoscope is held in left hand, and the blade should point away from oneself. The blade should be pointing this side, from away from the doctor. The laryngoscope should be advanced to just beyond the base of tongue so that its tip rests in the vallicula. The blade is lifted and the landmarks are looked for epiglottis and glottis. And now you see the glottic opening. It is surrounded by vocal cords. And then you insert the ET from the right side of mouth, and its tip is inserted into the glottis till the vocal cord guide is at the level of glottis, thus positioning it halfway between vocal cords and carina. This is the method of ET tube insertion. Now comes the last topic, medication. So there is a list of medication, and the three important one are epinephrine. It comes in 1:1000 concentration, and it is diluted 10 times and it becomes 1:10,000 concentration. It is indicated if heart rate is less than 60 after 30 seconds of PPV and CC. CC is chest compression. Now epinephrine has inotropic, chronotropic and peripheral vasoconstrictor effect, and the dose is 0.1 to 0.3 ml per kg. It is given by umbilical vein and may be given by ET also. Now next is volume expander. What is a volume expander? Which expands blood volume. Normal saline or ringer lactate can be used. If you have evidence of acute bleeding and signs of hypovolemia, then you can use volume expander, and the dose will be 10 ml per kg. Again, route is umbilical vein. Now naloxone, its dose is 0.25 ml per kg. It is given IV or IM. What for it is used? It is a narcotic antidote. So it is used for respiratory depression, and if the mother has history of narcotic administration 4 hours before delivery. So this finishes our topic resuscitation. So maybe I'll be having a live class with you to discuss these things again. Go through this, and we'll be meeting most probably on next Wednesday. Till then, stay safe. Thank you. Bye.